The president not signing the Electoral Act bill into law?
Well, the provision that I'm worried about in that particular electoral law that's about, I mean, the bill that has not been signed into law is the one that enables the card reader to be transmitted immediately. And that's very important because the only way they get to rig elections successfully here in this country is when there's delay between when voters cast their votes and when these results are transmitted to a central database. If we can get rid of that, I think elections will be fairer and freer. And I'm not in support of going to courts. You know, we know what the courts are there for.
What are they there for?
They are there to award judgment to the highest bidder. So this is something that we all know. And you discovered that in 2015, I personally covered the 2015 election. In fact, my organization at that time, Sahara Reporters, was the first to release the first 10 states. And after that was done, even though there was an initial uproar, you
released before INEC did?
Yes, we were the first to release before INEC. In fact, we released almost all, we had declared who we thought won the election before INEC came out and started.
Yeah, but isn't that against the rules too? Well, how do you go ahead and do that before INEC?
We are not bound by rules to announce free and fair elections based on our own calculations. If you go to the US, there is no INEC announcing results.
But that's US, this is Nigeria.
It's the media that announces results everywhere
else. But yeah, that's it. But that's the difference with what happens in US and what happens in Nigeria.
I was reporting from the US at that point.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So, yeah, and the Sahara Reporters is based in New York. But we gathered information, and all of the results we released, 10 states, tallied almost exactly by 99%.
With what INEC gave out.
With what INEC gave out. But what I'm trying to say here is that when you have free and fair elections, there's less litigation. And we saw that in 2015. And when you have less litigation, there will be less violence because then there's no tension and there's nobody trying to fight after elections. So I would support signing of this electoral bill, so that we can have that ability to transmit results as soon as they're available. And then election results can release earlier so that we'll know the winner, because we would like in our party to defeat these old guards.
Okay, I'll go to Prof, let me get to you here. The issue has always been on the signing of the Electoral Act bill, and if the president continues to give explanations as to how close this is to the elections as the reason why he's not going to sign that, you have quite a number of Nigerians who disagree, and they believe it's because his party wants to use any opportunity possible to truncate the process to favor themselves.
Well, first of all, I'm happy I'm in the studio with the presidential candidate. You know, I never knew I would meet Sowore in person.
Well, here you are.
Yeah,
you should thank today 95.
No, I'll thank 95. And that's how I'm going to meet God one day. First of all, I think that all parties are actually dealing with issues. Let's correct that. I'm aware that it is either you are criticizing what they are doing or agreeing with what they are doing. So issues are on the ground. Those who agree with issue of minimum wage, how it to be managed, how it to not be managed. So many issues are on the ground. The issue is clarity of issues, clarity of agenda, clarity of manifesto. That is what Nigerians are looking for. And let me say this, that I have advocated and I have documented that what we need is a People's Electoral Act or electoral law. The issue of transmission of results, those are not the real issues as far as I'm concerned. He mentioned the issue of award of judgments
by the courts.
Believe me, I have insisted that any electoral law moving forward must curtail the excesses of the court. And you're going to do that by recognizing that the ultimate power will be the electorate, either as delegates, as party members or who actually voted. I have never accepted 4 or 5 people deciding who will be governor after the people have voted. I will never, not even the Supreme Court in the United States will substitute the electorate. And that's why it is democracy. Democracy is not government by the course. So let me just make that point clear. And because those fundamental issues are not being addressed in this thing that I'm discussing, I'm not interested. My interest is that after this election, and I'm very glad that Sowore is a young man. Election is not going to end in 2019. I just told you that Gani, who is more than all of us combined here, couldn't win Lagos because of this issue of Electoral Act that doesn't recognize the people as the ultimate power in this country. So when you reform your Electoral Act and make direct primaries compulsory, make party membership rigid, not a shallow kind of party politicians who are today in PDP, tomorrow in APC, back to PDP, and then trivializing the whole essence of party politics. In fact, if you know what the word party means, before you move from party A to B, you will think twice. And I've come to believe that we need to restrict the number of parties so that we can have the force of followership, maybe 3, 4 maximum. If you cannot find space in any of the 4, you can be an independent candidate with strict rules for becoming independent candidate too. When you do that, I can now be a proper politician. I can now contest to become president, and you will see what I will do with that process. But the one that recognizes billionaires, trillionaires, we don't even know how they made their money. We're not even questioning how they made their money, who have impoverished us. That politics, if that's the one we want to talk about, the electoral law, to empower those people, personally, I'm not interested. I've said it that the president says he will not sign. The law says he can either sign or not sign. He said he will not sign. Those who don't want him to sign, the law says go and generate 2/3 in the National Assembly and override him. So this call sign. He said he will not sign. Why are we at the stage of sign? When the man said he will not sign, am I drunk? Don't I know when somebody says I will not do something? So I should go and force his pen and take pen from your hand. Sign. Go to National Assembly, you discover you cannot generate 2/3. It does not exist. So we must focus now on the 2019 election. And then after that,
OBS actually believes that the reason why he's not signing is because the opportunities will be available for his party to manipulate the elections.
This same Electoral Act have been used to do elections in Nigeria for long. So what those who are saying those things are saying is that they'll be rigging elections with that act. Believe me, I saw somebody said, oh, Baba will use it to write a electoral result for himself. Precisely what he has done is that he has said PDP has been writing results for themselves. AG, all those people have been winning different zones, have been writing results for themselves. That's what that thing means. And that's why for me, the real reform, working with solid politicians like this who have the intellect, begins after the 2019 election. We need to transfer power to the people and establish democracy in Nigeria.
All right then. Obakado Kubo, I have your thoughts on this finally before we go to something else.
What I don't understand is why after 2019 election? What you can do now, why shift it? Yeah. Except somebody wants to get advantage of it. I mean, I don't understand it. The president, nobody has even said that the electoral bill as we have it now is not an improvement on the former. So why do you want to remain where you are when there is room for improvement? When you can clearly see, when you have clearly seen that this is much better than what you had before. Why shifting it? Why after 2019? I think there's something that somebody just does not want to own up to. And I think I'll be with OBS Okwesili and for every other person.
I'm sure
who
agrees with you on that.
Sure, that every other person that is imploring and urging Mr. President to sign. 2/3, yes, I agree, we can't have it in the national.
Why can't we have 2/3? Who says? I mean, are they not also excited about having that election? Why can't we have a 2/3?
No, it's just not there.
I think, this is a very politically toxic period.
Exactly.
So, I mean, what you saw yesterday at the budget presentation
when they were
shows that
there were lots of
the National Assembly has become polarized
based
on politics. So there's never going to be any 2/3 before. In fact, I'm sure that they also are itching not to do anything until the election. So it's up to President Buhari to show that he is interested in what the majority of our people are saying. He cannot be wiser than 180 million people. And like our colleague there said, this is our position as new political operators in the country, that if you have a chance to break out of this prison called Nigeria, now, why wait till another election cycle? And that's what we're saying. It's time to retire all these old guards so that in 4 years' time we'll be discussing serious progress.
I want to quickly venture that way. The need to, like you say, retire these old guards. In doing so, I've spoken to quite a number of people here, especially on the morning show, and the uphill task for the lesser known political parties is structure. I always hear that they don't have the structure on ground that will enable them to defeat PDP and APC. And yes, it's good to see this opposition in action, but as it is now, this is something they cannot accomplish.
You see, look, I travel around this country, I didn't find anything called structure. The old parties don't have any structure. They have retail outlets for bribing voters. I'm telling you, you cannot find anywhere in this country, and I traveled extensively, where you find somebody who is ready to die for PDP or APC, or who is ideologically connected or genetically involved, organically motivated, about these parties. No, they just wait for them when they bring money. So when you are hearing structure, you are hearing about a ShopRite owned by, ShopRite-like type of place where you can go there and pick what you want. They let you go.
Really, you don't think they have them down all the way to their wards? Where you have,
if they did, they wouldn't have to do what they did in Ekiti and Osun State. They didn't have to buy voters on election day. If they had structures, in the U.S., where I've lived for 19 years, you don't have to tell the difference between a Democrat and a Republican. You see it in front of their houses. But in Nigeria, somebody will be PDP today, by night will be APC, tomorrow morning is back to PDP. Those are not structures. People don't have conviction. You can't call them structures. Even the parties themselves know that they don't have structure. Otherwise, why would Atiku have to come to Port Harcourt and bring all the Burundi change with him to bribe delegates? If they have structures, they don't have structures. These guys are doing what we call transactional politics. You give me money, I put my back on ground. This, like somebody said, is a shallow politics kind of thing. It's just transactional. They don't have any structures anywhere. That is why you cannot find anybody who will tell you that they are committed to any particular party ideology. And it's the reason why it's not difficult for them to move from one party to the other. There are no structures. Then don't let me lie to you.
Let me ask about African Action Congress. Yes. This party, when did it come to be?
About 3 months ago, one of the newly registered 23 political parties. Yes.
Okay, and you said this metamorphosed from a movement.
Yes, Take It Back movement.
Yes. And how widespread was this Take It Back movement? Because I'm still looking at the idea of structure and how this will help elections. How widespread was the Take It Back movement?
It's all over the country. That's why I was able to travel. I did town hall meetings, over 100 town hall meetings, including in Rivers State here, Port Harcourt. I did town hall meetings in places that are extreme and remote as Jalingo. We did in Yola. The other day we went to Buhari's hometown.
And your conviction is that the people you spoke to are able to deliver for your mandate?
Absolutely, they are. This is because our relationship is organic. And that is to say that they are convinced based on what I told them we can do, and they look at my pedigree and they say, wow, this is it. This is what I'm trying to tell people.
Did you have crowds to wave at?
I don't, because I don't wave at crowd. I talk to them. I'm not talking about them. But we have a lot of followers. We were in Uyo about 3 days or 4 days ago, and people came out en masse, particularly young people who have been left out of the political process.
Emmanuel Nduko, let me quickly ask you this, because I know that several times we speak about this here when we have guests on the show, and it has been on structure, whether Nigerians can actually buy that story that we don't need structure if we need to make any change. It's not necessarily how big the party is, it's where Nigerians want to go part-time.
I really don't understand what you can operate with if you don't have structure. And I stand to be challenged by anybody who says that structures are not important. Of course he's here, so I'm happy.
No, I didn't say I don't believe in structures. Okay. I'm saying that the parties that you claim have structure don't really have organic structures. They have retail outlets for bribery, intimidation, and corruption of voters. That's what I said.
Okay, let me take it that from that way. Assuming, like he mentioned here, that what they are doing is transactional politics.
Yes.
That, of course, means from his coinage that there is something like transactional politics which is in existence. And that automatically, as far as Nigeria is concerned, even if we are taking it on that level, becomes their structure. And I believe without what they call ShopRite kind of structure or whatever, if it does not exist for a political party in this country, the party will just daydream and fizzle out. And so it is very important that political parties have structure. It's not in doubt. Because if you don't, it's more like you don't have a base.
Yeah, but he says he does. And what he has is organic.
Yes.
He says he's able to connect to especially the young people.
The other ones have inorganic.
You know
Yeah,
what?
they have
No, hold on.
inorganic.
You know what I said when I was commenting on the Obi's position?
Yes.
I said it's not good to play the lizard. You know, a lizard falls up from up down, it knows his head. At least congratulating himself if no other person does so. So I believe it would be nice for Nigerians to now see that this particular brand of structure is organic or not. Not even that particular person. You can just say it as an aside, and that's what I believe, that PDP, APC have its roots on the stock. It doesn't mean they cannot be dislodged any year. But for this 2019, as far as Emmanuel Duque is concerned, it's going to be an uphill task to dislodge them.
All right, yes.
Yeah, briefly, just to say that we have national leadership, state leadership, senatorial leadership, ward leadership, unity leadership, all those, they all exist. But some of us are involved. They are debating issues. I have not started seeing transaction, but I can understand what he's saying. He says when the push comes to push, that money will be the determining influence. That is correct. There's no, you see, we need to be very frank in this country. We are still playing money politics. Because we have not carried out the kind of electoral reforms that some of us have advocated openly. And so it needs to also know that because of this money politics, he can, I wish him luck, but he knows he has uphill task facing us as a country. And that is why his entry into politics for me is very important. He could have been enjoying himself in the US. Some of us returned from that country back to this country to do what we are doing in one way or the other. Because it's our job to change our society. Structure. You remember that the popular campaign now in Nigeria is restructure. Structure and restructure. Some people think that we have the right structure. Some of us think that we don't have the right structure. No? Just as an aside, I was typing something I wanted to post on Facebook. If you watch the last 1 year, every legislature sponsored a bid to open University of Cooking in his village. University of Running Away, sponsored by Honorable Dudu. This, that, everybody is sponsoring. Over 300, even House of Reps and Senate, to be funded by who? You see, legislators are now involved in a bill to set up one thing or the other. That is exactly what politics is not about. When you have an opportunity like the kind of opportunity we have here, I'm just urging our friend here to know that beyond 2019, his ideas. You
don't think 2019 is feasible for him?
I wish him luck. I've said so.
Well, it is very important to say that I actually believe that 2019 is the best time to dislodge the Okagos. I can't stop calling them Okagos. Because this country cannot afford to continue the way it is now. And people who have been left out of the political process, the economic process, you know, if we don't get it right in 2019, what is coming to all of us is something we cannot imagine. It's going to be a hurricane that will sweep a lot of people away, because you can't have 70% of the population who are wallowing in abject poverty and penury, whereas a few people are making it. And you think that perpetually they'll just be watching you. You feed the greedy, and the needy are just there. One day they'll rise up, and what our voice is, we're lending our voice to that revolutionary feeling and thought in the country. So I like the arrogance of the existing parties, because
no, but obviously,
it was there the night before there was a revolution in Cuba and in France. The big people always sit comfortably saying these people can never rise up, and then one day they discover that they have a problem on their hands. So that's what you hear from the existing behemoth parties. Oh yes, we have structures because we are going to give money on election day. They have forgotten that people might rise up and say, we don't want to vote for you. We are voting for people with ideas. So ideas become the new currency, and that's what that can happen in 2 months.
There was something I got though, that because of the money-based politics that we have in this country. And it is so because it works for both ends. It works for those who are receiving and it works for those who are giving.
That's why I say it's transactional.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's not forget that it works because there's also the people who are interested in receiving. Now, the number of people who are willing to receive increasingly, unfortunately for us in Nigeria, are plenty and increasing because, well, poverty capital of the world and so many other factors. How do you seek to deal with that? Because there will be people who might like what you want to do, but are interested in how much you want to part with as finances.
Oh, it's going to be done by education and conscientization. What we're breaking it down to people is, if they give you 5,000 naira during election day, divide it by 4 years, what do you get? Maybe 10 kobo per day, and then you discover that 5,000 is your next child's education, your health. So all of it is put together in a paper or a paper bag and it's given to you as stomach infrastructure. And for another 4 years, you're dying, you have no hospitals to go to because the politicians have converted them and given it to you. That kind of education percolates more. And a lot of more people are talking about it. That look, we don't want instant gratification. We want a country that's working. Because before, you had to tell people about USA and the UK when it comes to development. But now when our musicians go to Ghana, they send back pictures of the airport as if they went to the moon. And Ghana is just 34 minutes flight from here. So it's starting to sink into public consciousness that if you govern Ghana, we had Ghana Must Go in 1983. Ghanaians are now doing Nigeria Must Go 2018. So it's that particular intervention in public consciousness is making people have a rethink, and that is why these big parties who think that money will do it will be disgraced in 2019. If it's the only thing we can do for them so that this country can move in the direction of progress and prosperity, we are here to do it, and that's what we call a revolution.
Okay, Opaka, I'll get your thoughts on that structure, party, and whether that is going to be a problem for the new parties as we go forward to 2019. If I can take that in a minute, the news update comes up next.
There's not two ways about it. I honestly very strongly believe that there are parties of the future. A lot of ideas that are thrown up now also are ideas that we need to we need time to actually materialize. For me, the period is too short. We're talking about a largely illiterate population and poverty. That is a serious problem. So when you come with ideas, yes, ideas are good. People will have to run with them. People will have to get them down to the grassroots, where the voting population actually is. So if you have this time frame, I think it's really going to be a important task. Because yes, you can speak to me, I may understand, and I could. But when I get back home, how do I translate it to these people for them to fully understand? It's not just talking and then they grasp it. No, because they do not have my sophistication, they do not have my education.
Your understanding.
It's really going to take time, and that is where.
So for the new parties, you're thinking good, but you need more time.
Yeah, and for me, a lot of the people who are in the fray, like I said, not everybody will win, and I think everybody will have to take in this, and that we will need to keep at it. It's not just come in and because I do not win, I
pull out
away and never show back. Now, we will need to keep at it if we make Nigeria work. So for those who believe in it, please see it as a marathon, not a 100 meters dash.
Thank you very much.